Hi, everybody. Al Bernstein here with another one of our boxing hangouts. And this one is one I have looked forward to a great deal because, of course, on Saturday, August 26th, I will be doing the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor boxing match, which has commanded so much attention. And to help get a little more insight into that fight, I thought who better to talk to than the ultimate expert in mixed martial arts and a great champion and commentator, the great Pat Miletich. And Pat has been kind enough to join us. Pat, thanks so much for taking a little time.
Thanks for having me, Al. Good to talk to you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Yeah, it's way too long. For people that don't know, of course, Pat was a welterweight champion in the UFC, had a fantastic record, a two-time champion in mixed martial arts, and now does Access TV broadcasting and is a fantastic color commentator who I got the thrill of working with years ago on Strikeforce, which was a lot of fun for me.
Oh, that was exciting. I mean, think about me watching you my whole life, and then they say, hey, Morrow's not going to make this one. You're working with Al Bernstein. I said, what? So well, remember I said I was nervous as hell. I was like, oh, I'd heard so many rumors about some of the guys at HBO. I won't mention any names, being prima donnas and jerks and stuff like that. And I was thinking, oh, this guy's going to be so nitpicky with me. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. You were awesome.
Well, we had a lot of fun doing it. And you helped guide me through one of the about 5 or 6 MMA telecasts I've done and keep me on the right track, which was really good. Did you ever think that we would have a top mixed martial artist and a top boxer actually get in the ring for a boxing match?
Not when they actually were technically still in their prime. You know what I mean? I mean, for me, toward the end of my career, toward the end of Roy Jones's career, and toward the end of Winky Wright's career, I was in talks with both of their camps to fight those guys, and it just never came about for whatever reason. But when they had mentioned Conor McGregor fighting Mayweather, I thought, to put that together, what athletic commission is going to sanction it? So many difficulties in pulling that off. Is the UFC even going to allow that to happen type thing? So I really didn't think it was ever really going to happen, to be honest with you.
So that's fascinating. You had talked to Roy Jones and Winky Wright and those people about possibly actually doing a boxing match. And I know you boxed some as an amateur, correct?
No, I had spent a lot of time I'd fought pro Muay Thai and pro kickboxing, right, and won a U.S. title in K1 rules kickboxing. But
right.
I'd only technically had one professional boxing match, but had done several exhibitions with pretty high level pro guys with like 35-2 records, stuff like that. And I'd sparred with a ton of world class boxers and world champs. And so I mean, I knew that I had to do that to be good at mixed martial arts and be able to toy with people standing up in mixed martial arts. So what a great experience. I mean, I donated blood for years in the boxing gym, but what a great experience.
Yeah, that's for sure. So when in the MMA community, it seems to me that for the most part, MMA fans and people involved in mixed martial arts are intrigued by this, and the level of interest is high. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the really strict boxing crowd is probably a little offended by this, I think.
Yeah.
That a guy with an 0-0 record is getting a shot at Mayweather, or that Mayweather's even doing this, probably considering that, maybe thinking he's trying to pad his record for that 50-0 record. People that want to see Triple G step in there instead, things like that. But because of the unknown and the cockiness and bravado and confidence that McGregor has, I think that was the needed element, certainly, for this to be pulled off.
It's a very good point. You made one of the most interesting comments about this fight. And ironically, so last night I was sitting down doing my keys to victory for this fight, which is tricky because we've never seen Conor McGregor as a boxer. So
right.
Of course you look at video of him as a mixed martial artist, but even in striking, we all know that it's different than it is when you're boxing.
Yeah.
But one of the third key to victory, one of the ones I put was be physical with abandon. You made a statement that I thought was so insightful, not surprisingly, coming from you, that you think McGregor needs to cheat within the rules and push the boundaries as much as he can to be physical with Mayweather. Explain that and explain why that's a good strategy.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're boxing with a boxer, because they've done it their whole lives, you think of the hundreds of matches that a high-level pro has had as an amateur, and they're so good at, they can box in their sleep. It comes down for them to get in shape. That's all they need to do. They're always going to know how to box at a high level. That's just the way it is. But boxers are aerobic animals, and MMA fighters, wrestling and grappling are anaerobic activities. So imagine doing a pull-up and holding yourself up near the bar for as long as you possibly can. That's what a wrestling match feels like. That's what a mixed martial arts fight feels like when you're on the ground for the entire time, battling, strength on strength. And that's when your muscles are completely out of oxygen, but they still have to function. And it can be a very painful experience for somebody that's not used to that. So being physical, putting your hands on somebody, pushing down on their forearms, fatiguing their shoulder muscles, their delts, pulling down on the back of their head, fatiguing their hamstrings, their low back and their neck muscles, things like that, off balancing them by because of the opposing stances. It's even easier where McGregor, being a lefty, can block the lead leg of Mayweather on the outside and push on his sternum with his head and get him off balance. And a lot of that sort of stuff that would get a boxer tired is what you have to do. And it does. It fatigues even a mixed martial arts fighter if you do that to him in sparring or a fight. Randy Couture did it to Vitor Belfort when Vitor was the up-and-coming stud, and Randy turned him into a wet rag by the end of that fight that they had, because he did that to a guy who was technically more of a striker in MMA than a grappler. So that's what he's got to do, and take the penalties. Get the warnings from the ref.
Yeah.
Push it and people are probably going, man, this is wrong talking about this. Look, you're not going to win on points against Mayweather. Yeah. Who cares about getting points taken?
No, I think you're right. Marcos Maidana, the two people that have been successful against Mayweather, Jose Luis Castillo years ago, who I thought actually won his fight with Mayweather, was very physical. Marcos Maidana in their first fight, who's a much smaller man than Conor McGregor. And of course, part of the issue of what you're talking about, or part of the one of the elements of that, is that they're fighting at 154 pounds. So McGregor is going to physically be stronger because he's used to that weight. There's not. Marcos Maidana in their first fight did a lot of the things you're talking about, maybe even without the science behind it, but did it, and it bothered Mayweather a lot. Now, my question to you is, Conor McGregor, when we look at him in mixed martial arts fights, likes to stand back and counter more often. Can he change himself to be this guy you're talking about?
I think he can, but here's the problem is, if he can wade his way in through Mayweather jabs and combos and things like that, get him against the ropes and get his hands on him a little bit, then yeah, that's possible. But it's, cutting the ring off on Floyd Mayweather is going to be difficult. And even when you do, Floyd's so good against laying against the ropes and dealing with stuff that you can punch yourself out so easily against him. The other thing is that, people don't understand, who aren't from the wrestling and grappling world and mixed martial arts world, is that a sport like basketball, a sport like baseball, a sport like even boxing are gravity-free events. Okay.
Right.
What I mean by a gravity-free event is people don't put their hands on you and make you feel like you're carrying 200 pounds on your back the whole time. And that changes things. So, MMA, wrestling, grappling, those are gravity sports. And it can get real ugly for people when they don't know how to deal with somebody hanging on them and pushing down on them, pulling down on their head now and then. And that remains to be seen how Mayweather likes a pretty fight. He likes a pretty fight. When Maidana was doing the stuff to Mayweather that he was doing, Mayweather was freaking out. He was not digging that at all. He was like, wait a minute, I just got out of a Bentley and I'm in a street fight here. This is not cool at all, man. So if he thinks Maidana was rough, and so also coming from a gravity sport, a guy's going to be much physically stronger because he's been in that world for so long. It would be like Mayweather lived on the moon his entire life and Conor McGregor lived on Earth, and they're going to come together, and there's a massive strength difference. There's no boxer that I've ever sparred with, even guys that were much heavier than me that I sparred with, that were even remotely as strong as I was. That's an
interesting comment. So physicality, you always had the edge.
You're going to be, yeah. And, I could roughhouse, I could kind of do what I wanted. And in the end, I think that they were leery also. There was some intimidation there because they knew that in a street fight, I could kick their ass. You know what I mean? Right. So that's the thing, that they were kind of real leery with me, and they'd open up and beat the hell out of me at times. But I think from the durability from mixed martial, at least from my lucky standpoint, maybe, is that I was never knocked out by a boxer. I was never really hurt by a boxer besides a body shot now and then. And I think it was just from the horrendous beatings that I'd endured my entire life in that gravity type sport.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we've ascertained that, McGregor's best hope is probably to try and do that. You also point out that he's a big left-handed puncher, and your point that you made in one of the stories I read was that, look, if a guy that's 154 pounds hits you, who can punch with the left hand, hits you with a good one, it can have an impact.
Yeah, and also on top of that, and not to bring up the Paulie Malignaggi, Conor McGregor sparring match, but you saw what Conor was doing to Paulie. Paulie claims, and nobody's seen it, and I have no reason to doubt Paulie's word, that Paulie was lighting him up like a Christmas tree the vast majority of the time, and then gassed out toward the end, and Conor was pulling down on his head and things like that and moving him around, and Paulie ended up, in my mind, for all intents and purposes, losing his balance and falling down. But he was getting hit with some shots. He was getting fatigued, and you saw those tricks where Conor was feeding the head through with the back with his hand, and that's a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about. And if Conor hits, Conor probably hit a light heavyweight clean with the left hand and daze him. You know what I'm saying? So he's got power. Yeah,
well, if he can land it. So clearly it's an uphill struggle for him. We know it's a heavy lift because he's facing a fighter who is technically amazing, though 40 years old and coming off a 2-year layoff. But we understand why Conor McGregor is the big underdog. So, Pat, I saw in one of the stories that you mentioned that a win for Conor McGregor, if it could happen in this fight, would have some interesting implications for mixed martial arts. In some ways, this is clearly a one-off event, but what implications do you think it could have, depending on the results, for either mixed martial arts or boxing? Are there any?
Well, look, in my mind, if Conor McGregor goes the distance in this fight,
even that
it doesn't look good for boxing. No matter whether Mayweather's knocked anybody out in 10 years or not, he's fighting a guy that's got an 0-0 record. He should be able to go out and handle this guy. And if he wants to carry him for a little bit, toy with him, make him, clown him for a while, and then put him away, that really technically should be the way this thing ends. If boxing is to come out of this without, a black eye, so to speak. And, so if McGregor goes the distance in this thing, let alone win, it's in my mind a huge win for. It's not like he's fighting a scrub. He's fighting arguably the best defensive boxer since Roy Jones and maybe since Willie Pep.
Yeah, it's intriguing. And I wonder if I always go back to the Bobby Riggs Virginia Wade tennis match that happened many years ago, and Virginia Wade lost to Bobby Riggs, and Billie Jean King had to face Bobby Riggs for women's tennis. If somehow McGregor, and of course if McGregor loses this fight even early, at the end of the day, it doesn't really diminish him in mixed martial arts probably because he came over to boxing. So it doesn't impact the sport at all. But if he were to somehow win this match or whatever, it's almost as if now boxer has to challenge him, whether it's Mayweather or someone else, for the sake of the sport, which you almost could sell, right?
Well, if I'm a boxing fan, which I am.
Yeah, you are. You're a big boxing fan.
But if I'm only a boxing fan, say, from that camp, that's when I start screaming, you got to bring in Triple G to finish this guy, to put this guy to sleep, man, because I'm done with the talking.
Yeah, that's funny.
Bring out the heavy guns, bring out the heaviest guns you got and put this boy away.
Yeah, that's funny if you're only one sport. What's intriguing, and it has captured, before I let you go, it's captured your interest enough, it sounds to me, and has captured the interest of a lot of mixed martial arts fans and many boxing fans as well. You're right. The purists are not as excited as some are about it. But this has captured your interest, has it not?
Oh, yeah, undoubtedly. Just because of the fact that I know the physical matchup is, in terms of strength and things like that, it's a complete mismatch. I know that McGregor's much more powerful of a guy. He's a bigger guy. He's younger. He's probably much more durable overall because of the 40-year-old age of Mayweather and a lot of the things that he's been through with his body. I mean, it's certainly it's very intriguing. And the thing about Conor's confidence, a guy that fooled himself into believing he could be a UFC champion, and then look, to believe in yourself enough to end up in the ring with Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match with a guy that's 49-0, the arguably, like I said, the best boxer in the world for many, many years. How the hell did he pull it off? The only way he pulled it off was just that, not only belief in himself, but it's so contagious that everybody else caught it. I
want to ask you one question before you leave about broadcasting, because you've turned yourself into a fantastic broadcaster, and when I worked with you, it's a pleasure to work with you. And what is when athletes become color analysts and broadcasters, sometimes it's not an easy process to take yourself and take a step back and still utilize all your knowledge of the sport, but not do it from a purely personal basis. What were some of the keys in you doing that?
To be honest with you, David Dinkins was a great coach. He taught me.
Yeah, who of course is the executive producer at Showtime of the boxing and did the mixed martial arts there in Strikeforce as well.
Right. And, he was quick to point out and correct me. He said, look, you're pretty good at this, but, there's a lot you need to learn. And one is you have to be the why guy. When there's a replay going, don't say, and there's a right hand landed by John Smith. How the hell did he land the right hand? What did the other guy do wrong that enabled this guy to land that right hand to put him down? Whatever. Explain the intricacies of the ground and the things that people aren't seeing that you understand and so he made it real clear that my job was to educate the viewer so that they truly did become even bigger fans of the sport. So I credit David Dinkins and also the rest his soul Daryl Ewalt from Access TV, the executive producer there. Both those guys were instrumental in helping me a lot understand the broadcasting game.
One of the things that I learned when I did play-by-play with you and then with Steven on some shows, Steven Quadros and other people, is that for the layman, a casual fan in mixed martial arts and watching matches, when the analyst is allowed to really explain the ground game in MMA is fascinating. Sometimes it gets short shrift because of the way it's approached by the people that are broadcasting it, I think. And I found it fascinating to lay out and let the analysts do their work when they're on the ground and occasionally be able to just add something that's, to move the process along.
Right.
But I learned from you guys and from really watching and listening how important that ground game can be and how the analyst can make it interesting.
Yeah, it's every combat sport, every part of combat sports, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, all those things have their intricacies, and it can take a lifetime to become good at any of them, let alone try to figure out, all of them. And so to me, it's kind of all just melted into combat sports for me. It's all just a fight to me anymore, no matter what kind of combat sport I'm looking at. And I just enjoy trying to dissect and hopefully help people see what's coming before it happens so that they go, oh, okay, I get it. I get where he was going, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Pat, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us and fascinating insights on this fight coming up. It's going to be intriguing to announce it, that's for sure. Yeah. And some of your insights very helpful to me in approaching this fight. This was like a free session for me, a free consulting session.
Well, I guess for
I'm going to get a check.
It's called A Million Fights. What's that?
Is there a bill coming in the mail?
That got sent off to Showtime.
Oh, good. Thank you. That was so nice of you. You sent it right to them. I like that.
Right. Yeah.
I'll send a little note saying, look, you're going to get an invoice from Pat for this consulting session. Hey, what a delight to chat with you, Pat. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I know the fans will enjoy hearing your insights on this fight.
I appreciate it, Alan. I'll see you in Vegas next week, buddy.
Excellent. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.